County. The Senator for Kirinyaga will also seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the security situation in Kirinyaga County. He will also seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing concerning reckless driving by motorists transporting hakat, otherwise known as Mira, through Kirinyaga County. The Senator will also seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare regarding the Older Persons Cash Transfer Program. The Senator for Vihiga County, Senator Godfrey Otsotsi, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism regarding the effects of government austerity measures on the hotel industry. The Senator for Kisumu, Senator Professor Tom Ojenda, will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding the death of cage fish in Lake Victoria, Kisumu County. And finally, the Senator for Kisumu County will seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries regarding the challenges faced by sugarcane farmers and the decline of the sugar industry in Kisumu County. Those statements will be sought in pursuant to Standing Order 53, subsection 1. There are papers which will be laid on the table of the Senate this afternoon by the Senate Majority Leader. 1. The report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Busia County Public Officers Revolving Fund for the year ended 30th June 2021. And 2. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Sibo Water and Sanitation Company Limited for the year ended 30th June 2021. And finally, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Kakamega County Assembly loans and mortgages for the year ended 30th June 2021. The debate on a motion by the Honorable Member Danson Mungatana on the effects of upstream activities on the River Tana to the residents of Tana Delta will continue this afternoon. The balance of time there is 2 hours 31 minutes. The Senator will be seeking that the Senate urges the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation in conjunction with the Water Resources Authority to conduct stakeholder participation before undertaking any major upstream activity, including construction of dams, before the release of water during rainy season, and limiting flow of water to Tana River during the dry season, and also develop a policy in line with the Nile Treaty of 1959 to guarantee average annual flow of the Tana River, and finally come up with mitigation measures to the perennial floods and water scarcity to the residents of Tana Delta. That motion will be debated this afternoon. It was interrupted on Tuesday, 15th of November 2022, and the balance of time there is 2 hours and 31 minutes. There are notices of motion as well which will be given this afternoon. One by the Senator Mwenda Gataya Mofire, and the notice of motion is on state of food security in Kenya. The other notice of motion will be given by the Senator Veronica Nduati, and it is on the plight of Kenyan domestic workers in the Middle East. Those notices of motion will be given this afternoon pursuant to the order paper which has been provided and is available on parliament.go.ke. If you're just joining us, the live proceedings of the Senate is about to begin. On your screen is the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Jeffer Kingi. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with abundant favor and blessings us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Clerk, we do have a quorum. So, first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of this House. Today, the 16th of November 2022, reports of the Auditor General for the year ended 30th of June 2021 on the financial statements of the Busia County Public Officers Revolving Fund, Sibo Water and Sanitation Company Limited, Kakamega County Assembly Loans and Mortgages Fund. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notice of motion.
The Honorable Mwenda Gataya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to give a notice of motion for the state of food security in Kenya. That aware that Act 43 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 stipulates the rights of every person to be free from hunger, to have adequate food of acceptable quality and to clean and save water in adequate quantities. Further, aware that there is prevailing food shortage in Kenya, which is as a result of, among other factors, lack of and inadequate rainfall over the last two years, consistent decline in the number of farmers and lands committed to farming, and the Russia-Ukraine war that has led to an increased cost of fertilizer and deferred products which are critical farm inputs, suggesting 4.1 million Kenyans in the arid and semi-arid lands are sourced to an acute food shortage situation, and about 942,500 children under 5 years, 194,270 pregnant and lactating mothers to acute malnutrition, according to the Kenya Food Security Steering Group. Noting that about 1.5 million deaths of livestock have so far been reported in the arid and semi-arid lands, ASOS, and that the situation is expected to be dire in light of expected projections that we may miss the normal cycle of rain expected in October, November and December 2022, and that this could be the worst drought we have experienced in 40 years. Concerned that the country is recording instances of conflict between crop farmers and the pastoralists over the scarce resource of water and the pasture, which results in the destruction of crops and deaths of livestock, further exacerbating the food crisis, and that the challenge of food shortage is now spreading to areas previously presumed to be rich, such as Mount Kenya, whose residents are now relying on government emergency food supplies. Now, therefore, the Senate urges the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock Development to develop targeted policy programs aimed at addressing the food security in the country, including the following: coordinate with county government to establish strategic grain reserve across the country within drought-stricken areas receiving priority. 2, develop livestock feeding programs in ASO regions, providing water and feeds to the livestock farmers. 3, coordinate with the National Drought Management Authority to do quarterly reports to the Senate on the drought situation in the country. 4, subsidize agricultural production. And number 5, establish abattoirs in ASO counties, and further recommends that the National Treasury and Economic Planning increases funding to the National Drought Disaster Fund. I hereby give notice.
Clerk, next order. There's a notice of motion by Senator Veronica, but pursuant to her request, that has been deferred to further notice. Next order, Clerk.
Order number 7, statements.
Honorable Chiranga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The statement of an issue of general topical concern on the superb performance by our athletes in the New York Marathon by the name Amos Chebet, Amos Evans Chebet, and Sharon Lokedi at 2022 New York Marathon, which happened a few weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, sir, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 52-1 to make a statement on an issue of general topical concern and national importance, namely superb performance by Evans Chebet and Sharon Lokedi at the just concluded New York Marathon. Mr. Speaker, sir, Evans Chebet won the men's title at the New York Marathon held on 6th November 2022 by clocking 2 hours, 8 minutes and 41 seconds. Chebet won his first international race at Buenos Aires Marathon, that is in Argentina, in a time of 2 hours, 5 minutes. Then in March 2020, he won the Lake Biwa Marathon in 2 hours, 7 minutes and 29 seconds. Later in December of the same year, Chebet set a world record when he won the 2020 Valencia Marathon in 2 hours, 3 minutes and 0 seconds. In the women's marathon, and by the way, let people not be confused, Evans Chebet is a man. In Kalenjin, there is always interchanging of names. It depends with the sub-tribes within the Kalenjin you come from. In the women's marathon, Sharon Lokedi won the title in 2 hours, 23 minutes and 23 seconds, bringing glory to Kenya. Lokedi had raced against raced at college at Kansas, where she was the champion in 10,000 meters in 2018. Mr. Speaker, sir, by winning the medical event, and it has to be noted to the House, New York Marathon is one of the 5 renowned international best marathons in the world, validated the first Grand Slam in history for our nation on the world circuit. Our athletes have won all 6 events on the program in 2022. Evans Chebet, who won in Boston, took 2 of them, as Eliud, the renowned, or these people call God, the renowned legend called Eliud Kipchoge, who comes from my county, won in Tokyo 6 and Berlin in 25th September. Amos Kipruta, who also comes from my county, Nandi, won in London on 2nd October, and Benson Kipruta won in Chicago 9 October to complete an outstanding performance. Mr. Speaker, this is not a mean achievement by these athletes that they have won almost all the 6 events against that has been organized in the calendar of 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, I wish to continue to call upon the government to use the upcoming and promising athletes as brand ambassadors, issue them with diplomatic passports, and ensure their finances and rewards are proper and not taxed and well structured to enable them to grow and remain motivated at all times. Like the way they happen in Uganda, Mr. Speaker, you win, they give you a car, they build your parents a house, and they ensure they welcome you in a grand manner. And Mr. Speaker, if you are single, the Ugandan government can go ahead and provide with you a wife or a spouse or a girlfriend. On behalf of the great people of Nandi County, the source of champions where Evans Chebet trains, Eliud Kipchoge, Amos Kipruta, another collegiate of athletes, I wish to congratulate them, Mr. Speaker, on this achievement of winning the 6 of them, and wish them well, ensuring of my commitment and the commitment of the Senate and Parliament at all times as they continue with their careers, Mr. Speaker. Even I want to, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, to call upon, even as this issue of doping, Mr. Speaker, continues to rear its ugly head, the solution in handling issue of doping, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, is not only banning the athletes. We must go, Mr. Speaker, for the medics suspending their licenses.
Senator, are you debating your own statement?
I'm concluding. My concluding remarks. I'm not debating. Just concluding. Mr. Speaker, it is not fair to only ban the athletes only, the people who are involved in these issues of banning, like the medical doctors who participate, the nurses, their licenses must be withdrawn. The hospitals and pharmacies that participate in doping must be suspended or closed. And Mr. Speaker, the DCI and DPP must even arrest coaches and team managers and train camp owners who aid and abet some of these, and ensuring that our athletes are banned. And Mr. Speaker, we are not careful, we might go the Russian way, where the athletics and Russia as a country has been banned from participating. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I thank you, and thank you for this indulgence.
Honorable Senator Kinyu.
Asante Bwana Spika, nataka kuunga mkono taarifa hiyo na kusema ya kwamba ni vizuri hao wanariadha ambao wamebombea waweze kutwikwa majukumu mengine kama kuwa mabalozi ambao watakuwa wakipeperusha bendera yetu katika nchi za uraibuni, Bwana Spika. Na ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana, na kwa sababu huwa tunawapongeza wakati huu, lakini baadaye katika maisha yao unapata wanaishi katika hali ya uchochole, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri hata baada ya wao kufanya vizuri waweze kupelekwa katika shule ambazo wafunzwe jinsi ya kutumia zile hela zao ambazo zitatumika wakati wao wa usoni, baada ya wao kuwa hawezi kukimbia, hawezi kujumuika katika biashara zingine. Bwana Spika, ni vizuri vile ambavyo tumeweza kuwapongeza wakati huu, si kukumbuka tu wakati ambapo wamekumbwa na shida. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, nataka kuunga mkono vile ambavyo Mheshimiwa Senator rafiki yangu kutoka Nandi Cherargei alivyosema ya kwamba serikali ichukue majukumu tuweze kutumia hawa wanariadha wawe mabalozi waweze kuwakilisha Kenya yetu katika sehemu ambazo natembelea. Nashukuru Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii na asante.
Senator Mariam Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding enrollment of residents of Mandera County to National Health Insurance Fund and release of capitations to hospitals in the county. In the statement, Committee should 1. Find out and report to Senate the number of residents of Mandera County who have enrolled in National Health Insurance Fund, stating distribution in enrollment in NHIF in various demographics. Secondly, provide list of credit NHIF hospitals and health facilities in Mandera County for both outpatients and inpatient medical services. Thirdly, state capitation amount paid to public and private facilities, private health facilities registered with NHIF for service rendered to patients for the last 3 financial years to date. Give reasons for instance of delays by NHIF in releasing funds to health facilities. Finally, Mr. Speaker, state measures, if any, put in place to ensure there are no delays in releasing capitations to NHIF credited health facilities in Mandera County. Thank you.
Clerk, this is a technical hitch. Yeah? I cannot see any of the senators who would wish maybe to. So how do we get to know? Senator Chiranke.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Mariam Omar, one of my committee members, for this statement. I think the issue of universal health care, Mr. Speaker, is very critical. As Kenya Kwanza, the government has a plan on the issue of universal health coverage. And Mr. Speaker, the issue of NHIF should be available and accessible to every Kenyan. Mr. Speaker, everybody is aware on the 4th schedule that one of the important things and one of the key functions is on the issue of health, Mr. Speaker. So when you talk about the issue of NHIF, I know NHIF is trying to do its best in terms of revamping and making sure it is accessible, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to call the Committee of Health to look at this matter. I've seen Senator Jackson Mandago, who is the chair of Health Committee, must look, and if there are any reforms that are needed within NHIF, Mr. Speaker, we must look at that properly, Mr. Speaker, because when you look at this issue of Mandera, it must be looked properly. And I hope with the new county government, now that county governments have settled, Mr. Speaker, we must be aware. And Mr. Speaker, we don't want to see a collusion between the county government, Mr. Speaker, and some busybodies within the NHIF who want to take advantage of that problem. And Mandera has more problems than somebody stealing or making sure they can access the NHIF card. As you are aware, Mandera is one of the counties, Mr. Speaker, that is ravaged by drought and famine. So if it reaches this level, Mr. Speaker, where the county government does not do its job, Mr. Speaker, then somebody must be called out. So I hope the Health Committee led by Senator Jackson Mandago will summon the Minister of Health, the CEO of NHIF must come, and the Governor of Mandera must also come. And it is good the Senator of Mandera is here, who is also the party leader, Mr. Speaker. The senator must also be there, Mr. Speaker, to look at this issue so that we have a closure on this matter, Mr. Speaker. And I think neighbors like Senator Dulo from Isiolo and all of us can be invited as a committee of the whole, Mr. Speaker, because NHIF is a national issue. So I want to thank Senator Omar for bringing this issue to the fore, Mr. Speaker, and call upon NHIF, even as we look at this in conclusion, Mr. Speaker. Can NHIF give us a short-term solution, Mr. Speaker? Because, you know, sickness does not knock on the door, Mr. Speaker. It cannot say today you will be sick, so you should be ready. So can the health committee, and I can see members led by Senator Mandago, give even, Mr. Speaker, with an indulgence on standing order number 1. Can they even by next week, Tuesday, because this is an urgent matter, come even with a short-term solution on what can be done so that these NHIF card holders, Mr. Speaker, can still continue receiving medical care as we look into the issue. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that opportunity.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support Senator Mariam and support that it should go to the Health Committee. Mr. Speaker,
Senator Dulo, what is your intervention? What is your point of order? Proceed, Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every time we hear issues to do with counties such as Mandera or Wajir, or counties like Tana River, Mr. Speaker, we are always suffering from the same kind of issues of deficit in terms of government services availability. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support my colleague here in how she sought this statement, and I'm asking the Health Committee to investigate about this universal health coverage in that county. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to congratulate Senator Mariam for this statement. And I wish to state, Mr. Speaker, that health is a right. And it is important that all Kenyans are supposed to be provided with health care. Mr. Speaker, there is a big problem with NHIF, and especially last government actually brought in the issue of universal health care. And a lot of money went into it. And if I remember very well, universal health care had connection to NHIF. And if you look back and see how universal healthcare was rolled out and the way it is being operationalized right now, it's like nothing has happened. And I think this matter that has been raised by Senator Mariam, it's a matter that is affecting the whole country, all the counties, Mr. Speaker. If the Minister for Health and the CEO of NHIF can tell us how NHIF is rolled out, the impact of NHIF, how they are reimbursing the institutions, I think that is really very critical so that we can have a comprehensive report and audit and overhaul NHIF functions in this country. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mandago.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the statement by Senator Mariam on this matter of NHIF, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a serious issue with NHIF, particularly on the reimbursements to public facilities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I say this having been a immediate former governor for Uasin Gishu County, that there has been a trend that has been set by NHIF where public hospitals are not reimbursed regularly, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the delay can be even as far as 6 months, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the reimbursements from NHIF are the funds that sustain these facilities, Mr. Speaker, because those are the funds the facilities are able to spend within the facilities. Mr. Speaker, there's a serious problem looking at that trend. But if you go to private facilities, Mr. Speaker, you will find that there is no inordinate delay in reimbursing private facilities. Mr. Speaker, therefore, my committee says of this matter, and we are going to look into this matter, and I agree with the Senator for Nandi, Senator Cherargei, that the CEO and the management of NHIF should appear before our committee, Mr. Speaker, so that we put this matter to rest. Mr. Speaker, it looks like in all counties at the moment, the NHIF is not working. I'm also aware, Mr. Speaker, that even in the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, there is a very serious issue of NHIF, and now patients are no longer even getting services at MTRH because of these NHIF reimbursements that are not happening, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, indeed, the rollout of the Universal Health Care Program that was rolled out was done in a hurry, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, you may recall that even the pilot that was done in 4 counties, Mr. Speaker, the results of that pilot was not shared publicly, and we could not get the lessons from the pilot of the rollout of UAC, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think this House must say this matter. Considering that health is a devolved function, Mr. Speaker, we as senators, Mr. Speaker, should look into the reforms in terms of legislation and the composition of NHIF, so that we, the defenders of counties, Mr. Speaker, ensure counties have a role and a say in the running of NHIF, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I therefore support the statement by Senator Mariam and say that our health committee says of this matter, and amongst others that have been raised by the Senator for Marsabit and many other senators who have raised issues concerning NHIF, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support Senator Mariam on that statement. And as said by Senator Dulo, the right to health and access to that right is so important, Mr. Speaker, that it actually supplements the basic right, that is the right to life. It is therefore important as a country that we take the implementation of this right very seriously. Mr. Speaker, we have been talking about universal health care. Election after election, we see manifestos promising to deliver on universal health care. But when implementation comes, you see governments picking something like maternal health alone and calling that their way of implementing universal health care. Mr. Speaker, you have been a governor, and other governors who've been here know that the biggest bill, even for county governments, is the health sector bill in terms of managing, and yet it is never adequate. We still don't have enough service providers. We don't pay health care providers well enough, and our public hospitals are in pathetic conditions. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to suggest something that is very radical, that this House, I hope, can be a house of reason that can begin to advocate for a radical move in order to get this country to truthfully deliver on universal health. Mr. Speaker, I want to propose that all NHIF funds that are paid in respect of bills that touch upon all senior public servants be paid to public hospitals only. If we do that, Mr. Speaker, we will be investing the monies that we have in our own public hospitals, and in doing so, we will be able to handhold the so-called hustlers that my brother Khalwade speaks about. But if my brother Khalwade wants to go to Nairobi Hospital and take all the funds to Nairobi Hospital, but his hospital in Kakamega is not good enough for him to go to, if the governor of Nairobi cannot go to Mbagathi but wants to go to Nairobi Hospital, if the governor of Nakuru cannot go to needs to be flown to Nairobi in order to be taken care of, but cannot go to the county facility that he's in charge of, then there is something wrong. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of the UK goes to a public hospital. The President of India goes to a public hospital. It is time that we, first of all, reorganized NHIF, but also took care of that NHIF to ensure that the bills, at least paid by taxpayers, in respect of public servants, all of them, state officers and others, should first go towards supporting hospitals like Kenyatta so that the same funds can take care of the ordinary public members who go to Kenyatta. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support Senator Mandago's suggestion that it is time also to restructure the parastatals that are holding county functions or that are working towards county functions to ensure that they become intergovernmental parastatals. NHIF is one of these. We need to reorganize it, to clean up what everybody knows it is, but also to reorganize it so that it's an intergovernmental body where even the Council of Governors will have a right to appoint some of those who go to the board and to help so that we have a board that is holistic, representing both county and national government interest in order to steer this well. And if we do this, Mr. Speaker, the facilities in remote areas, the facilities in counties that have historically been marginalized will start coming up. So I want to support and ask that we start thinking radically if we actually want to achieve universal health service. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Roba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement shared by Senator Mariam and expounded on by Senator Muma and Senator Mandago and Cherargei. I want to share this as counties strive to improve service quality. Over the 10 years that we've had devolution, health sector has tremendously improved. And I'm talking from experience in terms of where we were in Mandera and where we are right now, and in terms of health sector improvement. NSSF can really support that improvement by making sure they prudently reimburse clients that go to government hospitals, because county governments are striving, and I'm aware that county governments are in the face of establishing amenity wards, where people will be able to pay nominal fees and be able to get the same services that they're able to get from private hospitals. But unfortunately, the information shared is extremely accurate based on my own experience as a former governor of Mandera, that NSSF does not expeditiously reimburse government hospitals at the same speed as they reimburse private hospitals. And as such, you find that claims are launched by county hospitals, and you will find that the claims will be rested so that Nairobi Hospital, Aga Khan, and the rest are reimbursed. If NSSF is put to task so that they consider reimbursement requests at the same level, speed, and priority as those from the private hospitals, then county government hospitals and hospitals run by government will be able to plow that money back and make sure that service improvement can be undertaken alongside investment that is being done by county government. Statistical data will indicate that in each of the 47 county governments, the highest budget allocation of the 10 ministries that the county governments run is in the health sector in terms of the allocation that county governments do. So there is no underinvestment under the circumstance with the limited resources that county governments are able to get from the shareable revenue shared by county governments. Complementing efforts like the government of the day striving to make universal healthcare work, and then institutions that will have fast-tracked that implementation, such as NSSF, applying that spirit of all of us are equal, but others are more equal than others, meaning private hospitals are priority, government hospitals are tertiary priority, and because of that, I believe that it will be extremely important for the health committee to be able to call NSSF in the actual sense, because the Minister for Health and that may be just collateral damage, but this is entirely 100% under the control of NSSF. The CEO of NSSF need to be put to task in order to make sure that they go alongside the spirit of the government of the day of improving and establishing universal healthcare. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Veronica.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the right to health is guaranteed under Article 43 of the Constitution. The fact that this right is guaranteed under this article means that it's an important right under the Bill of Rights, the socio-economic rights. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I rise to support the statement by Senator Mariam, it is sad that an institution like NHIF would be causing public health institutions to be driven to their knees in terms of not having resources to render quality health care. So my proposition, Mr. Speaker, sir, just in as much as the contribution towards the NHIF is done in a timely manner every month and submitted to the NHIF, Mr. Speaker, sir, this House must, number one, take up the challenge to ensure that every regulation and every rule binds NHIF to make sure all the bills are rendered within a certain time frame, and to ensure, Mr. Speaker, sir, that these bills that are being raised by public institutions, which have a direct impact to the quality of healthcare that is being rendered to Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not impacted by the delay that is being caused by NHIF in meeting its needs, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I support the statement by the Senator, very wise statement from the Senator, that time has come for NHIF to drop the bad culture of failing to support their service by making sure that they pay up whatever needs to be paid up to the institutions which are public in nature. In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, it should be treated as impunity if NHIF can pay the private hospitals in good time and fail to pay the public hospitals in the same period of time. Mr. Speaker, sir, their service charter must treat every institution equally and must be able to meet the conditions of those institutions in the manner in which it will deliver quality health care to all Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I sit, let me note that if a Kenyan has an accident on Mombasa Road, the first hospital of intervention is most likely to be a public institution. It's a public hospital. It is not going to be a private hospital. So the longer we keep our public hospitals in a deplorable manner, the harder it will be for Kenyans to be able to access, and not just one Kenyan, but all Kenyans who are utilizing the services of healthcare within the Republic of Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I take this opportunity to support the statement by Senator Mariam and to ask the committee to put to task the NHIF on accounting on why they cannot improve their service to make healthcare an achievable right in the Republic of Kenya.
This statement is referred to the relevant committee for consideration. Senator James Kamau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have several statements that I request to ask for. If you allow, I can go through them in consecutively. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the skewed distribution of relief food in Kirinyaga County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the criteria used to identify the beneficiary of relief food being distributed by government agencies and measures, if any, to ensure that such relief food fully benefits the targeted people. Number 2, explain why Marurumo, Siagini, Dorome, and Indiroku areas in Kirinyaga County were not considered for provision of relief food, despite being severely drought hit. And 3, outline plans the government has put in place to ensure that there is sufficient relief food aid stock in order to ensure all targeted population in drought hit regions of the county benefit and deal conclusively with drought and food shortage. Mr. Speaker, my second statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, again I rise pursuant to the same Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the security situation in Kirinyaga County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the circumstances that has led to the escalating cases of insecurity in Kerugoya, Sagana, Gorobani, Kagumo, and Kagio areas in Kirinyaga County following the recent wave of thefts and muggings. 2, state the number of reported insecurity incidents in the affected areas of Kerugoya, stating the nature of the incidents, victims targeted, including the number of fatalities and those injured, and the interventions made by the police to bring to book those behind the reported wave of insecurity in Kirinyaga County. 3, outline immediate and long-term action being taken by the Minister of Interior National Administration to curb insecurity in Kirinyaga, including dealing with outlawed gangs like Oesame that are terrorizing residents of Kirinyaga Central. Mr. Speaker, my third statement, in pursuant to Standing Order 53.1, I seek the statement from the Study Committee of Road, Transportation and Housing on speeding by driver transporting miraa through Kirinyaga County. In the statement, the committee should, 1, appraise the Senate on the extent of compliance to provisions stipulated in the Traffic Act by driver transporting miraa. 2, state the measures put in place, if any, to curb accidents caused by the drivers who continue to create havoc on the Ndiroku Gathigiri Prison Road and the Viva, Soil, Muruvara, and Gurvan areas in the country. And 3, enumerate the action being taken by the government to ensure peaceful coexistence among road users, including motorists, cyclists, pedestrian, and dealing strictly with traffic offenders to curb cases of traffic offenses and accidents. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 53.1, I rise to seek the statement from the Standing Committee of Labor and Social Welfare on the older person cash transfer program. In the statement, the committee should, 1, outline plans by the government, if any, to register more beneficiaries to the older person's cash transfer OPCT program, considering that the last registration was done 3 years ago. 2, state measures put in place by the government to ensure timely disbursement of the funds to the elderly. And 3, inform the Senate on the steps being taken to update the list of beneficiaries to exclude deceased individuals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi. Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1.
Senator Osotsi, you had made a request, so you're on your feet for purposes of making a contribution to that. If you're not ready, then I will call.
Well guided. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to comment on one of his statements on the issue of distribution of food to people affected by the famine. I noted that one of the issues he raised is about the system of distributing this food. Looks like the system of identifying the particular people who are supposed to benefit is not that efficient. And that raises concerns because there was a recommendation even from the IMF and other donors that the government changes from food distribution, physical food distribution, to cash transfers, which was more efficient. It had less challenges of procurement and corruption. And I wonder why the government has gone back to physical distribution of food, which has a lot of challenges, procurement, even logistical challenges, and even corruption. So I think it's an important issue that Senator for Kirinyaga has come up with, and I ask the relevant committee to quickly move in and request for sufficient information from the relevant ministry so that we don't expose ourselves to corruption that is likely to arise as a result of this crisis, disaster that we have. So I commend the Senator for bringing this to the House, and I ask the committee to quickly do a report to this House on this matter so that we can save this country a lot of money, which is likely to get lost as a result of corrupt practices by some public officers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chiranke.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, out of the many statements that Senator Murango has said, Kamau, one of the statements that struck me is on the older person's cash transfer. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend and congratulate Senator Kamau that is learning very fast and becoming very industrious. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, because all of us at some point, we shall get old, and we need the government to take care of us at some point in life, except when you are a pensioner. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad that registration of older persons in terms of cash transfer, Mr. Speaker, and I asked this question during the last session of Senate before we adjourned for elections, that it is done 3 years. It should be done even monthly because people grow old. It does not mean that it is only after 3 years that people retire and get the age that is required. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, looking at the life expectancy, we should in fact lower the age of registering under the older persons cash transfer program. Even bringing at 60 years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even the Bible talks about 70 to 80 years. 60 to 70 years or 70 to 80, how do you register somebody who is from 70 and above? The retirement age of any person is 60 years, Mr. Speaker, and therefore, in fact, it should be lowered to be 55 to 60 years. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, these are old men. Mr. Speaker, when you go to towns in Kapsabet, in Eldoret, in Vihiga, in Kilifi, you find wazee from all those small villages boarded a matatu all the way to towns. Mr. Speaker, they are old. They can't cross the road. They are illiterate. They are in poor health, Mr. Speaker. You go and allow them sit on the verandas to be taken advantage by the vagabonds at the cities and centers, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Treasury and Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare must be creative enough, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that even if they should send, in fact, the M-Pesa, Mr. Speaker, to those wazee wherever they are in the village at their convenience, so that they don't need to travel using matatus. They are sick. Some of them do not have a support system, Mr. Speaker. We must be creative so that we don't subject our people to go to withdraw, Mr. Speaker. Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, the commercial banks, and I don't want to name the names of those commercial banks. Mr. Speaker, those commercial banks are taking advantage. And for example, Mr. Speaker, without naming these commercial banks, why would you give a certain commercial bank that does not have even their agent up to the lowest, some small center somewhere in, for example, Chepterwai Center, somewhere in Masab sub-county, Mr. Speaker, or somewhere in Mombo, a farthest corner, somewhere in Tindret sub-county. Yet you give a bank, Mr. Speaker, that even do not have even 1 or 2 branches in Kapsabet town, which is the sub-county headquarters or the county headquarters of Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, or somewhere in Kilifi. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare, let us either use M-Pesa. I know some people might complain that they are being blacklisted through CRB. Mr. Speaker, there is an amnesty from the government up to early next year. And in fact, mercy, Mr. Speaker, that is only given once in a lifetime has been given to the CRB listing holders, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that our elder people, Mr. Speaker, have served this nation. Let us treat them with dignity that it serves by ensuring that there is transparency, Mr. Speaker, and accountability, Mr. Speaker. And finally, when this committee appears, the PS in charge and the minister, Mr. Speaker, must tell us for the last 3 years, Mr. Speaker, for the last 3 years, they must tell us how much have they dispensed to how many elderly people in this republic, who are they, the ID number, Mr. Speaker, because we are being told, Mr. Speaker, in the last era of Uhuru Kenyatta, last 3 months he used 50 billion that no one can account for. So we don't want to be told 50 billion was used to give to Wazee, yet we don't know what that Wazee was, Mr. Speaker. And maybe they were being used by Azimio campaigns, Mr. Speaker. So that issue must be handled with properly, because we cannot operate the transition of a government, Mr. Speaker. We want to protect going into the future, Mr. Speaker. You cannot use 50 billion and you cannot account for it, Mr. Speaker. These people must tell us where the money is. What they cannot tell us, they gave it to Wazee, yet they were using for Azimio One Kenya Alliance campaigns in the Kenya Republic, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Honorable Speaker, allow me just to go straight to my point without deviating to the sentiments by the Honorable Senator for Nandi. Honorable Speaker, I rise to make a point on the statement of the Honorable Senator for Kirinyaga, and specifically about the older person's cash transfer. Honorable Speaker, if there's anything the government has done well and had a good intention, it is about this cash transfer. Honorable Speaker, when this initiative was begun with the Grand Coalition government, the older persons in the 2 pilot areas of Nyeri and Bondo where it began, if anybody would reflect and see how those old people looked like, it was so pathetic, Honorable Speaker. But as soon as this fund was disbursed, and with the time, Honorable Speaker, you saw the honor and you saw the dignity of these older persons that were receiving these funds. Honorable Speaker, I rise to emphasize the fact that this is a fund that has given, restored the dignity of our older persons, and all we may ask for is that, Honorable Speaker, it should be disbursed in a timely manner. Honorable Speaker, these funds are used for the upkeep of these older persons. If they are to be made use of well, with the people that benefit for them, that it must be done in a timely way. Thus, the factor of timeliness. And Honorable Speaker, my take on the fund is that the Honorable Senator asked about when other older persons will be registered. For me, I would emphasize that all the older persons in this republic must be registered to benefit from this fund. Honorable Speaker, because specifically, most of the beneficiaries are always people who have a lot of responsibility, older people that have lost their children, and they take care of grandsons and granddaughters. And Honorable Speaker, if you look at some of the benefits, this amount, however little some of us might consider it to be, some of the people that benefit from these monies have even taken their grandsons and granddaughters to local schools around where they stay. So, Honorable Speaker, as I support this statement, I would like to say that the government must go forth to register all older persons into this scheme, and let the disbursement also be timely. Honorable Speaker, I support this statement.
Honorable Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to request for a statement on the effects of government austerity measures on the hotel industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism regarding the effects of government austerity measures have on the hotel industry. In the statement, the committee should, 1, state the measures, if any, that the government is taking to help the hotel industry to recover from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic due to low volumes of international booking that has led to closures of several hotels: Intercontinental Hotel, Laico Hotel, Radisson Blu, and now the imminent closure of the historic Hilton Hotel. 2, explain what informed the recent presidential directive to shove off 300 billion shillings from the current financial budget by, among other measures, discontinuing trainings, conferences, and other events by government ministries and agencies in hotels, which will exacerbate the already difficult operating environment for hotels. 3, table the assessment report done by the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage on how the proposed austerity measures would affect the hotel industry, and indicate the measures being taken to alleviate the negative effects caused to complementary industries such as transport, aviation, and agriculture that depend on the hotel industry. 4, state whether the relevant industry stakeholders, such as the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, were involved in the decision to impose austerity measures, and clarify whether donor-sponsored events in facilities, hotel facilities, will also be affected by this directive. 5, outline any additional policies the government is implementing to seal budget cuts in government, and actions put in place, if any, to ensure that funds are not lost through corruption and tax evasion, which necessitates drastic and punitive austerity measures. And lastly, number 6, table a detailed status report on the successes or failure of such past austerity measures by the past government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senator Mazayo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I would like to congratulate my colleague for bringing this statement. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, it is not only in the hotels as stated, like the imminent closure now of Hilton Hotel. Hilton Hotel, as far as we are concerned, is an iconic hotel. It's among the first hotels we have had in this country. And it's going to be very unfortunate if the government will allow it to sink, knowing very well the efforts we have made to ensure that we rescue Kenya Airways. Mr. Speaker, it is also it's also important to note that in Kilifi, if there's any place that has been badly affected by this mismanagement of the tourism industry, then Kilifi is one of the areas that has been hard hit. We have hotels like, iconic hotels like Lawford's Hotel. There are hotels like the Whispering Palms. We have the Angels Bay. There are quite a number of hotels which those days, if I can remember, tourists used to be so many in Malindi and Kilifi in general, and the coast, basically. It was a tourist destination. But now, as we can see, it has been neglected. I want to call upon the Ministry of Tourism to wake up. There is so much corruption in that area, in the ministry. And if at all we can, the government can put a lot of concentration on how we can rescue or how we can bring back tourism in this country, then it will go a long way to help or alleviate in creation of jobs, job opportunities, in creation of quite a number of infrastructure in certain areas, and opportunities for everyone. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Senator Boni Kalole.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to congratulate Honorable Sotsi, the Senator of Vihiga, for this very important statement. For a long time, agriculture was a main forex exchange earner for this country. And because not too much thought has been put into it, this iconic status has now been lost, and it is being lost to unpredictable products like the inflow of funds from Kenyans living in the diaspora. Mr. Speaker, we need to take it even more aggressively so that over and above reviving tourism as it has been, we should cause tourists to come to Kenya for other reasons other than the big five in our wildlife and our sandy beaches at the coast. Mr. Speaker, if you come to the western part of Kenya, the tourist potential is massive, but it is not marketed as an alternative to the big five. Mr. Speaker, in Western, starting from Lake Victoria, the Kitmigai, going to the Vihiga stones, going to the Kakamega forest, going to Elesi stone, the graying stone of Africa. Mr. Speaker, all the way to the rich culture of Isukuti and bullfighting. There are things that can bring in billions of dollars on a weekly basis, and the product is not being developed. And as if it is not enough, you can see the hotels have collapsed. It is very sad that we understand even the hotel like the Hotel of Homa Bay, the hotel like Golf Hotel, they're all going under simply because of people not being aggressive enough. I therefore support and hope that this House will take it more aggressively than just taking it as a statement from a distinguished senator. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that this is a very important statement from the Senator of Viga, my brother, Senator Osotsi. And we do understand very well that the government is trying as much as possible to impose some austerity measures, but hotels form a big base. Hotels in our counties, and my brother here will tell you that they form a big base of small and medium enterprises that you see many of the government policies trying to look at, in the sense that if you go anywhere in this county today, the real estate industry in mostly far-flung counties tend to be around hotels. And therefore, we should not look at hotels as mere functions of the big players. But hotels forms a very big base of small, medium enterprises in this country. And trying to put austerity measures that indict hotels that we cannot be able to go to these hotels and do meetings is actually killing the same economy that the government is trying to face. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, and I hope people like my brother Matthew, who I know is in the deep state, I want to say this, Mr. Speaker. Our approach to austerity measures in this country is a wanting one. Because what's happening in this country is very simple. We are in a country where it looks like we have a river that is flowing, and there are people who have
Senator Kamau, what is your point of order? Okay, proceed.
Sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. So we do have an economy that works like this. It's like a river where we've got resources flowing downstream, and then somebody has dug dams around this river. After digging the dam, under the dam, there is another porosity that is going on. The policy we are seeing is an attempt to reduce expenses in government. But this is a wrong target, because we know very well that in this country, the income element and the expense element are a function of what is happening in KRA and in procurement, Mr. Speaker. We know that tax collection in this country is what is putting us into serious problems, because we know that the tax collectors, people are paying a lot of taxes in this country, and those taxes can actually be able to finance government budgets. But what is happening is that there is a lot of leakages with our taxes that they don't end up getting to government. Today you want to take 300 billion out of the hotel industry, when actually there is almost the same amount of money that goes to real estate by tax collectors who do not allow these taxes to reach to government. We have got a lot of buildings in this city today called Nairobi that have been built by KRA officials that are picking money and not allow them to get to government. And this is quite known. So we want to encourage the government that the first thing to do is first of all to stop leakages that we are seeing in KRA, that the money doesn't get to the government. And then secondly, Mr. Speaker, the value for money that the government is attempting to address comes with serious leakages with procurement officers. Mr. Speaker, procurement officers in this country today have made it impossible for government to get value of money. We go to government staff and you realize that the procurement things that are done there are always inflated to suit people working in government. So my plea with the government is not to target the wrong areas. I don't think that there's a problem with government officials being able to do their meetings in conducive areas, Mr. Speaker. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker, when we're doing the training, we just came from our recess, and when we're doing training in Mombasa, in very nice hotel, and you know, we were very relaxed. I can imagine if we were to all be placed into these chambers, Mr. Speaker, for about the 5 days that we were having, I don't think we'll be as effective as we were. That is the atmosphere that we need to create, whereby leakages and porosity that we are seeing in the procurement and the collection of revenue in this country can be corrected, rather than targeting small and medium enterprises in the name of hotels. And I hope that my brother, Senator Cherargei, will have the courage to convey this kind of ideas to the government. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia maombi ya taarifa kutoka kwa Senator Usosi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama tunavyojua nchi yetu ilikumbwa na janga la corona, na vile vile baada ya hapo ukawa na wasiwasi juu ya uchaguzi mkuu ambao ulifanyika mnamo tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8 mwaka huu. Mheshimiwa Spika, yote hiyo iliathiri uchumi na hususan uchumi wa utalii, kwa sababu utalii unapendelea mazingira ambayo kuna utulivu na kuna usalama katika mahali ambapo watalii wanasafiri. Mheshimiwa Spika, sasa ambapo uchaguzi umekwisha na uchumi umeanza kufufuka, ndio Wakenya wengi wanapata fursa, na pia mashirika na wafanyikazi wa serikali wanapata fursa ya kwenda katika mikutano ili kuweza kujadili miradi na masuala mengine ya kuendesha serikali. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii kuzuiliwa kwa kufanyika mikutano katika mahoteli itaathiri pakubwa uchumi, na vile vile pia itaathiri biashara ya utalii, kwa sababu utalii mwingi unaofanyika sasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni wa mikutano, conference tourism. Ndio utapata ukienda Mombasa hivi sasa utapata hoteli kama Pride Inn imejaa, hoteli kama White Sands imejaa, ukienda hoteli kama Serena imejaa, ukienda Naivasha pia vile vile utapata kwamba hoteli nyingi zimeweza kujaa, kwa sababu mashirika mengi na wizara za serikali zinachukua fursa hii kufanya mikutano katika hoteli zile. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, iwapo agizo hili litatekelezwa, ina maana kwamba zile hoteli ambazo zilikuwa zatarajia kupata mapato, kwa sababu mwaka huu wa mwaka 2022 ni kama ambao Mheshimiwa Spika umepotea. Kwanza tulikuwa tuna recover kutokana na janga la corona, baadaye kukaingia makampeni ambapo watu wengi walikuwa hawako tayari kuondoka mazingira yao majumbani kwao kwenda kutembelea mahoteli kwa sababu ya wasiwasi. Alafu sasa hii serikali imepiga marufuku mikutano katika kufanyika katika mahoteli kama hayo. Hii Mheshimiwa Spika, inamaanisha kwamba wale wawekezaji katika biashara za hoteli wataposa kupata faida yoyote katika mwaka huu 2022. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, agizo hili litaathiri uchumi, kwa sababu mapato pia yanayotokana na biashara ya utalii yataweza kupungua, na hivyo hata yale malengo ya serikali kukusanya zile pesa walizopanga kusanya mwezi wa 6 budget iliposomwa haitawezekana. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa swala hili liangaliwe kwa haraka, kwa sababu tayari tunaona kwamba tunafikia mwisho wa mwaka na wangependelea kuweza kupata faida angalau kidogo, waweze kurejesha rasilimali zao katika mwaka huu 2022. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Kamau.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Naweza kuchukua hii nafasi pia nimshukuru Senator Usosi kwa kuweza kuleta hii statement. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka nichukue hii nafasi niseme kwamba utalii, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kitega uchumi kikubwa cha Jamhuri yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimetoka katika kaunti ya Lamu ambao iko katika Jumuiya ya Pwani. Mheshimiwa Spika, unaelewa vizuri kabisa sisi watu wa Lamu tunategemea zaidi uchumi wa utalii. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, utalii ni jambo ambalo Lamu kwa muda mrefu sana tumeweza kujivunia, na umeweza kuajiri vijana wengi sana pale kwetu kaunti ya Lamu, na ndiposa Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka ni support
vile ambavyo waheshimiwa wenzangu wameweza kusema ya kwamba utalii ni jambo ambalo serikali inafaa iditilie ama idichukulie na jambo la uzito sana, ikizingatiwa kwamba utalii umeajiri vijana wengi sana katika jamhuri yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kaunti ya Lamu inaweza kuaminika ya kwamba Lamu ni mahali ambapo kwa muda mrefu sana ni sehemu ambayo imejulikana kwamba utalii umeweza kubombea zaidi, na ndiposa ninataka kusema kwamba hoteli zitakapochukulia hatua ama serikali itakapokuwa inachukua hatua ya kupinga mikutano katika mahoteli yetu, itakuwa inaua uchumi wa nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa kusema kwamba kule Lamu tuko na mahoteli mazuri sana. Hoteli kama vile Majlis Hotel, tuko na hoteli ambayo inaitwa Maharus Hotel, tuko na hoteli inaitwa Peponi Hotel, tuko na Janathan Hotel. Mheshimiwa, mahoteli haya yote ni mahoteli ambayo ni ya kifahari. Na nataka niseme kwamba ningependa kuongea pia, Mheshimiwa Spika, na bunge hili la Senate. Niseme kwamba huwa ninaudhika sana na nasikitika sana wakati ambapo mikutano mingi inaenda kufanywa Mombasa, Naivasha na Lamu. Mheshimiwa Spika, hatupati wageni kama wale wa Senate ama serikali haitumi viongozi kwenda kule kuweza kufanya mikutano. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niseme kwamba ningetaka sana mara hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, nione delegation ya senators wote na members of parliament wameelekea huko Lamu kuweza kustarehe huko, kwa sababu ni sehemu ambayo ina mandhari mazuri ambayo wakienda pale watajivunia kuwa Wakenya wakiwa mahali pale. Ndiposa Mheshimiwa Spika, ninaomba sana kwamba tuweze kusupport jambo hili, na niseme kwamba clerks na deputy clerks ambao wako hapa mara hii waweze kupeana ama kutoa nafasi ya senators waweze kusafiri kwenda Lamu, na pia niweze kuchukua nafasi pia, Mheshimiwa Spika, niweze kualika waheshimiwa wenzangu tarehe 24, 25 na 26 tuko na cultural festival ambayo, Mheshimiwa Spika, itakuwa inajumuisha mataifa mengi katika jamhuri yetu ya Kenya, na ndiposa na katika ulimwengu mzima kutoka sehemu mbalimbali za ulimwengu Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndiposa naomba waheshimiwa waweze kuunganika na serikali na viongozi wote waweze kwenda huko waweze kujivinjari katika ile sehemu yetu ya Lamu. Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka niweze kusupport na nisema kwamba siku ya kwanza ama wakija pale Lamu, waheshimiwa senators watakaofika hapa, lunch ni mimi nitasimamia siku hiyo, na baadaye waweze kuspend ile per diem yote watapewa, waweze kuhakikisha kwamba wameispendi pale ili watu wa Lamu pia waweze kujivunia kwamba wamepata wageni kutoka Senate. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Honorable Senators, you will note from the order paper that there are two more statements by the Honorable Senator Professor Tom Ojenda. However, the Honorable Senator Tom Ojenda has made a request that we defer this to tomorrow, and pursuant to that request, I direct that those statements be deferred to tomorrow, 17th of November 2022. Next order, Clerk. Yes, what is your point of order?
I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but I have a statement here which has been approved, and I thought I would be accorded an opportunity. I'm not in any way, Mr. Speaker, challenging your authority. I'm not in any way, as it is suggested by my young brother on the Cherargei. I'm not in any way trying to challenge the authority at all. In fact, I think it's just an oversight. Maybe I could take it up tomorrow. I don't mind having it tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I said.
The Honorable Senator for Kilifi, kindly approach the chair. Kindly. Honorable Senators, I will allow the Senator for Kilifi to make his statement. Kindly proceed.
Asante Bwana Spika. Asante sana Bwana Spika. Cherargei is my brother, so it's quite okay. Mheshimiwa Spika, nasimama kwa mujibu wa kanuni za kudumu katika kipengele cha 53 kuomba taarifa kutoka kwa kamati ya kudumu ya ardhi, mazingira na mali asili kuhusu kuvunjwa kwa nyumba na kufurushwa kwa wakaazi wa kijiji cha Pindukiani, wodi ya Ganda, katika eneo bunge la Malindi, kaunti ya Kilifi. Katika taarifa hiyo, kamati hii iangazie yafuatayo. Bwana Spika, la kwanza ni kwa sababu zipi zilizopelekea kuvunjwa kiharamu ama kinyume na sheria kwa makaazi ya familia zaidi ya 200 katika kijiji cha Pindukiani, wodi ya Ganda, eneo bunge la Malindi, katika kaunti ya Kilifi. Bwana Spika, cha pili ni kwa nini ubomozi huo ulitekelezwa kinyume na agizo la Mahakama Kuu lililosimamisha ubomozi hadi kesi ya mzozo kuhusu ardhi hiyo itakapotatuliwa. Ya tatu, umiliki sahihi wa hati miliki kutoka kwa wakazi wa eneo hilo, na iwapo mhusika alibomoa alikuwa na kibali kutoka kwa mahakama kuidhinisha utekelezaji huo wa kubomoa nyumba hizo. Kwa sababu Bwana Spika, hapa kidogo sikufafanua vizuri, lakini ni kwamba kubomoa zile nyumba kama alikuwa na ile order ambayo kile kipande ambacho alikwenda kubomoa ndio hicho ambacho kilikuwa ameambiwa aende akabomoe, ama alienda akavamia kijiji chengine ambacho watu wako na hati milki na wakabomoa hicho, wakawacha kile ambacho walikuwa katika oda yao. Ya mwisho Bwana Spika, ni kwamba nataka kamati hii izuru katika hichi kijiji cha Pindukiani na kubaini sehemu hiyo inayodhaniwa ya kwamba ilikuwa katika hiyo eneo ambalo ilikuwa latakana libomolewe, na kuona ya kwamba hawa watu 60 ama hizi ekari 60 ambazo zilifanywa ubomozi, je, hawa watu waliokuwa na kiti pale watalipwa rasilimali yao kivipi? Asante Bwana Spika.
The Honorable Senator Mungatana.
I want to stand to support the request by the Honorable Senator Stuart Madzayo. Mr. Speaker, this issue of demolitions that are coming to people who are mostly not earning a lot is a very serious issue. And if I can relate, I think in that particular case, there was no following the laid down procedure. We know, Mr. Speaker, every time an order for demolition that is coming from the court, how it is implemented, the steps are very clear. That order is not to be effected just by auctioneers. It has to be taken to the police. The police, they take it to their seniors. It has to be done in such a manner that the police are satisfied that there is no case pending before court. Mr. Speaker, auctioneers have taken advantage of people and destroyed lives and life savings of many people. Auctioneers, Mr. Speaker, and it is evident even here in Nairobi, just recently, it was all over the television stations. Auctioneers, Mr. Speaker, have really made people to suffer. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes there's no following the procedure. Sometimes even the officers in police stations are compromised. Mr. Speaker, I know of a case in Malindi where an advocate that I know very well was even threatened by arrest because he went and told the officers who are executing that order that what you are doing is an old order. There is an existing order that says there should be stopping of this demolition until the pending case is heard. Mr. Speaker, we need to bring some order. And I pray that in this particular case, in Malindi, it would serve as a lesson. Mr. Speaker, I pray that that committee, when it goes there, all the people who are culpable of any procedural violations, appropriate actions are taken against them, Mr. Speaker. And also, there will be recommendations from that committee, Mr. Speaker, to look at the Auctioneers Act, to look at how demolitions, if it is a property that must be carried out. And Mr. Speaker, very serious consequences should follow. Not a consequence of an auctioneer demolishing a building and then you come to court and you are given a bond of 100,000 shillings to get out, and you have destroyed a livelihood like we saw the other day here in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, it is the same even with those people who are living in small houses and in our villages. It should not happen. Not in this administration. It should not happen. Not in this new constitution. I support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
We are doing nothing here by asking for statements, by sending our leader of majority up and down here as if he's an errand boy. He is not. So what we need, I think, is to summon those, all those who are concerned, and we don't need the statements, we need the money. In my constituency today, 80% of students who are relying on CDF for bursaries are not going to school. All livestock and livelihood are lost because of drought, and therefore, in the next maybe 2 years, there will be nobody going to secondary school, there will be nobody coming to the universities, and therefore, there will be no education system. There will be a serious break within the education system.
The last one, the honorable members. Okay, the honorable Dr. Nyikal, Professor Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this issue is demonstrating a very important fact, that this House must realize that the executive is taking this House for granted. Why do I say that? Look at the communication that has come from the leader of majority. The way CDF issue has been going on, it is an issue that is well known within the whole government, and the magnitude is known. It is not possible that the cabinet secretary is going to give a reply without actually making consultations. So when the cabinet secretary says subject to consultation, what stopped the cabinet secretary from consulting in the first place before actually giving the answer to the leader of majority? It is a delaying tactic. And I'm sure that by the time the cabinet secretary actually wrote that reply, he had actually consulted, and I think this matter was taken casually by the whole executive. I'm sure as of now, the whole cabinet is aware of the status. Even if, as I hear now, that the court today ruled, it is clear that by the time this was being, the reply was being constructed, that information was not available. They decided, the whole executive, to take this for granted. That is why they give a casual reply to the leader of majority. What are you going to consult tomorrow that you cannot consult now before you give the reply? Mr. Speaker, they are taking us for granted. And my suggestion, when we call them to the committees, it should now, the committee should actually be in here, and all of us now will be the friends of the committee, and the whole house should sit now with them in that committee, and then they hear what our opinion is. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The last one for Dr. Bukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to make comments on the report by the Majority Leader. Honorable Speaker, Majority Leader here is the messenger. And as you are aware, when the President addressed this House, he requested that we make amendments to our standing orders so that the Cabinet Secretaries would be coming here. If we had the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury in this House, I think many of the issues which have been raised would have been addressed. And I think these are the challenges, and it is high time that the House takes this matter of amending the standing orders very seriously and urgently, because otherwise we'll keep on lamenting and complaining. And as you are aware, I was listening to Minority Whip. You know, he was the chair of the BBI, and you exhausted all the money. Now, this is where the problem which we find ourselves in. So there is no point of order, Majority. The
Honorable Dr. Bukose, when you get an opportunity to contribute on a matter that is...
I'm well guided, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
I withdraw my friend. You know he's my friend, so I was saying that in a light touch.
Proceed.
So, Honorable Speaker, I think if we can make amendments to our standing orders, then this issue that we've raised can easily be addressed. But our students are paying, and we are going to January when schools are going to open, and it will really be a big mess, especially for the first-timers who have never even issued any bursary. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I raise my case.
The MP for Kwanza, what's banning you? Proceed. You are the last one, very last one.
Very last one, but I want to say this with a very heavy heart. That, Mr. Speaker, out there's rain. Some places, and we have constructions of some schools and what have you, that the rains are going to spoil some of these constructions. Mr. Speaker, for all I know, the case that is in court is for 2013. Let the Treasury release the money as we wait, because there's nothing which has stopped them from releasing the money. The case is there. So while we do, Mr. Speaker, we want the leader of the majority to get to the Treasury and demand tomorrow that they have to release the money. Because, as we said, I don't even know what to do. I can't even get home because there are too many people complaining, both from the colleges, secondary schools, and all the other places. They want the money. So, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing stopping the Treasury from releasing the money, because what is in court is 2013. The CTF of 2015 has nothing to do with the 2013. So, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the majority should stop other businesses, and tomorrow he goes to Treasury to be able to have the money released. Otherwise, we are not happy. Thank you very much.
Next order. I have already called for that. What is your point of order? What's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I want to bring, with your indulgence, I want to bring to the attention of the House that the supplementary budget is coming in 2 weeks' time. I want to plead with the House that we should not pass that supplementary budget if there is no CDF. That's the language the executive will understand. Can you clap for me?
The honorable member for Kabuchai, Majimbo Kalasinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I firmly rise to ask question number 03 of 2022, the order paper of today. Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report on the circumstances that led to the loss of 25.5 million shillings, Mr. Speaker, meant for the coffee farmers who supplied coffee to Nakoyonjo Coffee Factory, Mr. Speaker, in March 2022, allegedly through a robbery at Ushirika Bank branch in Kabuchai constituency. To Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary state whether the incident was reported to the relevant authorities and what is the status of the investigations into the disappearance of the money, Mr. Speaker? Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, what actions has the ministry taken to expedite the payment and compensation, if any, to the affected farmers, Mr. Speaker, from Kabuchai, from Nakoyonjo Coffee Factory? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. Next question. Next question. The Honorable Joyce Kamene, MP for Machakos. The Honorable Joyce Kamene. Let's go to the next question. The Honorable Abdul Haro, MP for Mandera South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the measures that the government has put in place to ensure the residents of Mandera County are able to acquire important government documents, including national identification cards and passports, without undue delays caused by lengthy bureaucratic procedures? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the measures that the government has put in place to address the unwarranted delays in vetting of persons applying for passports in Mandera County? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Next question, the Member of Parliament for Teso North, the Honorable Oku Kaunya. The MP for Teso North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 9 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection. Roman 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances that led to the dismissal of Mr. Gabriel Akimwanar Obashe, holder of ID card number 7230285 from the National Industrial Training Authority on the 19th of February 2018?
Roman 2, could the Cabinet Secretary indicate when the officer will be reinstated back to the office and be paid his salary arrears and other benefits for the period he was out of employment? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I notice there is a difference in the dates, the one you read and the one that's printed. You said 2018, but it said here 19 February 2022. Could you correct yourself?
Honorable Speaker, I wish to correct that. You'll note on the print, I think it was an error, typographical error. There's a question mark under 2022.
So it's 2018.
So the correct position is 2018, Honorable Speaker.
Okay.
2018.
To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Labor, the MP for Malava, the Honorable Malulu Injendi.
I rise to ask question number 11 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. One in Roman. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the list of constituencies that received a share of Kenya shillings 4.9 billion by the National Government Constituency Development Fund through the second supplementary estimates during the 2021-2022 financial year, and further list those that did not receive any funding, including my constituency, Malava. 2, could the Cabinet Secretary further explain when the Kenya shillings 2.9 billion balance will be disbursed to the remaining constituencies, considering that each constituency was to receive approximately 13 million to enable the completion of stalled projects? Thank you, Speaker.
Fair enough. To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. The next question, the MP for Imenti North, Abdul Dawood. Abdul Dawood. Next question. The MP for Keyo South, the Honorable Gideon Kimayo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 13 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Blue Economy, and Maritime Affairs. Question number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of persons and organizations that surrendered land to Flospa Mining Company Limited in 1974 to pave way for mining in Elgeyo Marakwet County, particularly in my constituency of Keyo South? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary further provide a status of compensation of the said persons and organizations and indicate when all of them will be compensated? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary also indicate whether there are any plans by the government to revive Flospa mining in the said area? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining. The next question, the MP for Funyula, the Honorable Dr. Jambo Undo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 42A5, I rise to ask the following question directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the registered land and property owners and their agents, as are contemplated under Land Registration General Regulations 2017, are unable to obtain official searches as required under Section 34 of the Land Registration Act Number 3 of 2012, that is required for any disposition of property? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why there has been inordinate delay in preparing and releasing official searches or certified copies of titles acquired and registered under the now repealed Registration of Titles Act Cap 281, the Government Lands Act Cap 280, and the Land Titles Act Cap 282. 3, could the Cabinet Secretary further explain why all properties registered in the Republic of Kenya pursuant to Section 7 and 8 of the Land Registration Act Number 3 of 2012 are not uploaded in the online platform of Disasa, and when will the process be completed? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Fair enough. To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Honorable members, for those who are not who did not ask their questions, we'll go a second round, a final round. Member for Machakos County, the Honorable Joyce Kamere, MP. The Honorable Joyce Kamere, question dropped. The member for Imenti North, the Honorable Abdul Dawood. Abdul Dawood. Question dropped. Honorable members, we go to the next order.
Order number 8, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 49 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act and for connected purposes. Order number 9, motion, tree planting along the roadsides and road reserves. Resumption of debate.
Who was on the floor? There was no one on the floor. I presume that the list I have here are members of Parliament who would want to contribute on this motion. The MP for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me an opportunity to present pursuant to this motion on tree planting along the roadsides and road reserves. Mr. Speaker, sir, this will help in terms of environmental protection. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the rate of forest deforestation in this country, it is at an alarming rate. And Mr. Speaker, if trees are planted along the roadsides and road reserves, this will help in terms of forest cover. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support this motion.
Fair enough. Do I take it the MP for Kilifi County would want to contribute on this motion?
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, nami naunga mkono hoja hii ya kupanda miti, na nikiwa katika kamati ya environment. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jukumu letu tuone ni vipi tutaongeza upandaji wa miti, na hasa zile sehemu ambazo saizi kunanyesha. Viongozi wetu, si barabara kuu peke yake, barabara zote katika wards, kama watahusishwa, manake upandaji wa miti na kamati ya environment iko nationally na kule kwa county. Kwa hivyo viongozi wetu MCAs kama watahusishwa pia, ili zile barabara ndogo ndogo katikati ya wodi zetu zitaweza kupandwa miti, nafikiri tutafikia kile kiwango kikubwa cha upandaji wa miti milioni 10 na zaidi kwa muda mchache. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia nataka kuzungumzia jambo moja, jambo limepita, nilikuwa nimekuhusisha pale mwanzo kuhusu pesa za NGCDF. Leader wetu wa upande wa wengi bungeni alizungumzia tu upande wa zile pesa kuhusiana na maeneo bunge peke yake. Nataka kuzungumzia pesa za wawakilishaji wa kike ndani ya majimbo yetu 47. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi hatuna kesi kotini kuhusiana na pesa za ngafu. Zimecheleweshwa, na ni ombi langu tuone ni vipi waziri wa fedha Mheshimiwa Ndung'u aweze kutoa hizi pesa za ngafu. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia sisi tunalipa karo za shule. Tuna miradi na watu wetu, kina mama, vijana na ndugu zetu wanaishi na ulemavu. Wana uhitaji mwingi sana na wanategemea viongozi wa kike, yani women reps, kama mimi kutoka Kilifi waweze kusaidika. Na vile hatuna kesi kama vile ya NGCDF iko, sisi twamuomba waziri aweze kupeana hizi pesa kwa haraka kabla tujaenda likizo, tuone vipi tutaweza kusaidia. Tuna wanafunzi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kule Kilifi mimi niko na wanafunzi wa full scholarship wanaenda kufanya mtihani, pesa zao hatujamaliza kulipa. Kwa hivyo itakuwa bora, na nimesema kwa sababu hatuna kesi ya fedha hizi za ngafu, hizi ziweze kutoka kama itawezekana hata wiki ijayo, ili tuone vipi wale wanafunzi tumewasimamia kutoka form 1 mpaka form 4 fees zao tunawalipia kamili, wakalie mtihani. Wale wa pesa ndogo ndogo za basari pia sisi tunalipa, waweze kulipiwa na yale mashirika ambayo yanatuunga mkono kufanya kazi na kina mama, vijana, ndugu zetu wanaishi na ulemavu waweze kusaidika. Mheshimiwa Spika, tarehe 1 Disemba ni siku ya walemavu nchini.
Order, honorable member. Order, you've had an inordinately long leeway on this because of the sensitivity of the thing, but there is no relevance to this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The MP for Kisawini, Rashid Bedzimba.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Hata mimi nilibonyeza kidude kitambo ili kusudi nizungumzie swala la CDF, lakini sikupata nafasi. Lakini labda uniruhusu dakika moja tu kusema kwamba ni vyema waachilie hizo hazina kwa sababu zinasaidia wengi sana kule mashinani. Umaskini ni mkubwa sana, hata watu hivi sasa wakipewa tu wakielezwa walete 200 za chakula za shule zinawashinda. Kwa hivyo ni vyema sana waachilie hizi fedha, zinasaidia watu maskini, hali ni ngumu, kazi hakuna, wanategemea hiyo. Kwa hivyo sioni sababu ya waziri wa fedha kusema kwamba anaenda kutafuta ushauri kwa waziri mkuu, kwa mkuu wa sheria, kwa sababu haijashtakiwa NGCDF. Sioni sababu, lakini pengine anachukua muda alafu ataziwachia, lakini sisi tunamuhimiza kwamba ni jambo la muhimu. Kuhusu upande wa upandaji wa miti, Mheshimiwa Spika, upandaji wa miti kando ya barabara ni muhimu sana, kwa sababu miti inasaidia kuchukua hewa chafu na kuhimiza na kuiachilia hewa safi ile ambayo sisi sasa tunatumia. Miti imesaidia sana, ndio kaona kwamba afya za watu wengi mahali kuna miti zinakuwa imara kuliko mahali hakuna miti. Ukaangalia upande wa miti ikipandwa barabarani, miti barabarani ama mitaani inasaidia umumunyikaji wa ardhi. Ukipanda miti hata wakati wa mvua mafuriko hakuna. Wakati miti hakuna na mafuriko yanakuwa makubwa na athari yake inakuwa ni kubwa zaidi. Kwa beautification ya miti, uzuri wake inafanya mahali kunapendeza. Wakati wa ukame kuna maua aina fulani inatoka, na wakati wa mvuli pia inatoka maua aina fulani na inatupa vivuli katika sehemu zile. Pia miti ni kitu muhimu sana kwa sababu kuna viumbe ambao wanalala kwenye miti ile. Kuna viumbe kama ndege ambao usiku wanakwenda pale, ndio sehemu zao, ndio nyumba zao. Kwa hivyo ni muhimu contractor yote anayejenga barabara lazima alazimishwe kwamba apande na miti, kwa sababu inasaidia watu wengi, binadamu na hata viumbe vingine ambavyo vinaishi katika miti hiyo. Kwa haya mengi, Mheshimiwa Spika, nishukuru na kuunga mkono hoja hii. Asante.
The Member of Parliament for Mosop, the Honorable Abraham Kirwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity that you've given me just to contribute, especially to this motion of tree planting along the roadside and road reserves. Mr. Speaker, knowing for sure the effects of climate change in this country, and Kenya has not really been spared, I am for the support of this motion by Honorable John Kiarie to plant trees along the roadside and road reserves, because for a while we have continuously destroyed forests, and the forest has truly caused, by destroying the forest, has caused droughts, no rains, and the climate in Kenya has continued to change. Not only Kenya, even Africa as a whole. Kenya is now experiencing the worst drought in many, many years, in 40 years actually. We are losing animals in game reserves. Families don't have enough food because of climate change. So the only option and the only opportunity we have as a nation is to continue to plant as many trees as possible. That will be the only way to help us to reduce the temperatures of the earth, and it will help us to continue to attract more rains, and that way we will continue now to just experience a greener nation. If we don't do this as a nation, because if you go to urban areas, we may not have enough places to grow or to plant the trees. But along the roads, along the road reserves, we will have an opportunity to actually cover most parts of this country. So for the opinion, as we also encourage to plant along the reserves, we only also encourage the residents and the citizens of this country to actually take upon themselves to grow trees along their homes, in their farms, and wherever they can, so that we can actually reverse the damages that we've experienced as a nation. So I'm in support of this motion by Honorable Kiarie, that we continue to plant trees along the roadside and along the road reserves. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Julius Sunkuli. Is the Honorable Julius Sunkuli in the House and interested in the Honorable Julius Sunkuli? Eh? Oh, he's not there. The Honorable Member of Parliament for the Greater South, do you still intend to contribute on this motion? I notice you. Oh, it's your motion. It's your motion. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, great, great, great. John Kerry. Is Samuel Atandi in the House? The MP for Isiolo, is it? Oh, the MP for Kuria East. Proceed.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nichukue nafasi hii kukushukuru na vile vile pia kukupongeza kwa sababu tangia umekuwa kwenye kiti sijakuwa mbele yako. Mheshimiwa Spika, mswada huu ni mswada muhimu sana. Mswada ambao umekuja wakati ambao ni wa mwafaka. Mheshimiwa Rais juzi, siku za hivi karibuni, amesema kwamba katika namna yake ya kutaka kuongeza upanzi wa miti atapeana certificate kwa wale watakaofanya kazi hiyo kwa namna fulani au kwa njia ambayo itaridhisha sana. Hiyo yote ni nzuri sana, na mimi ningependa kuongezea kwamba Mheshimiwa KJ, na nikushukuru sana kwa kuleta mswada huu, kwa sababu hela zinazopeanwa katika idara hiyo ya kulima barabara au kufanya maintenance au kuiboresha kwa namna yoyote ile ni hela nyingi sana. Na mara kwa mara ninajua kwamba huwa kuna ile sehemu au kitita ambacho kinaweka kwenye kandarasi hiyo ili kwamba ikaweze kuenda katika kuzingatia mazingara. Lakini mara nyingi, Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wengi wanapuuzilia mbali mambo haya kwa sababu hakuna anayejali. Lakini tukiweka hii katika sheria, iwe kwamba inazingatiwa kwamba kandarasi akipewa kazi, tangia siku aliyeanza kazi siku ya kwanza, kwa sababu mipaka ya barabara sinajulikana, anaanza kwa kupanda miti. Ikiwa kwamba barabara hiyo itakuwa kwamba inachukua labda tuseme mwaka mmoja kujenga labda au miaka miwili, mti huo akiutunza yeye kwa gharama ya serikali, itakuwa kwamba kufikia wakati huo utakuwa mti umekuwa mkubwa. Kwa sababu exercise zingine zote ambazo zimewekwa pale mbele kwamba watu wapande miti, aidha kwa kupitia kwenye CDF, aidha kwa kupitia katika wizara, ni watu wanaenda kwa siku moja, wakisha panda mti wanaondoka, wanaacha wanyama wanakula miti ile, inakuwa kwamba hakuna ufuatiliaji. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa KJ, niseme kwamba mswada huu umekuja wakati mzuri sana, na kiangazi ambacho sasa hivi kinakumba nchi hii, hiyo yenyewe inaonyesha umuhimu wa kuweza kuchukua swala hili na kulivalia njuga na kuweza kuangalia kwamba tufanyeje ili jambo hili likaweza kufaidi watu wote. Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba nichukue dakika moja tu, niruhusu niweze kusema kwamba swala hili la CDF, Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi sina vita vyovyote na wale ambao wanapata pato lao kwa kwenda kotini. Kuna watu wengi sana wamepitia fedha za CDF kusoma, wamepata elimu yao, wamekuwa ni mawakili, wamekuwa yani wamechukua wana nyadhifa za juu katika nchi hii. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, inasikitisha sana kwamba wakisha kupata wao faida kwa CDF kupitia kwa basari, Mheshimiwa Spika, sasa wanajiona kama kwamba wao sasa wametosheka, wamefika. Sasa wanaenda katika ile mkondo mwingine wa kuweza kutafuta utajiri kwa kwenda kotini kusimamisha kila sehemu ambayo ingemfaidi mtoto maskini aweze na yeye kuwafikia na wao. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuachia hapa kwa kusema kwamba swala hili za NG-CDF haliondoki. Ingependeza kama tungetafuta njia mbadala ya kuweza kuweka fund hii kwa sehemu ambaye haitakuja kuingiliwa tena na watu ambao wanaiona kama ni ya kuwatajirisha wabunge, na ile hali wabunge hao ndio wanaowasababisha hata na wao wakapata kulala usingizi mzuri, kwa sababu tusipopata sisi pesa ya kuwasaidia maskini, na wao pia hawatalala katika manyumba yao, kwa sababu watoto hao wasipoenda shule watageuka kuwa majambazi na italeta shida katika nchi hii. Na sasa hivi Mheshimiwa Spika, tuna janga kubwa sana ambalo linahusu ukosefu wa usalama. Sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, ikiwa sasa hivi tunalia kuna ukosefu wa usalama Nairobi hii haikaliki, alafu tunataka tuongezee kwa watoto wetu watoke shuleni kwa sababu hawawezi kulipa karo, alafu tunawaongezea katika mitaa. Mheshimiwa Spika, tupande miti, tulipie watoto wetu shule, CDF iendelee, tufanye maendeleo ya hayo mengine yote, nchi hii iweze kuwa bora. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
The MP for Moiben, Phyllis Barto. Is she proceed, Madam Phyllis Barto?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion on planting trees along our roads by J.K. Kiari. This motion comes at a very timely time, Mr. Speaker, because in as much as we would want to plant trees everywhere, land scarcity has also become an issue, and it might take a while for people to be convinced that they need to create space in their pieces, the small pieces, to plant trees. So doing it along our roads, our highways, is very important. Mr. Speaker, in Moiben, we have started an initiative referred to as Adopt a Forest by every school in Kenya. And we are hoping that we are going to plan, at least every student, every teacher, to plant an indigenous tree and take care of it until it's mature. And that way, we will have several forests. We were looking at a scenario where in Moiben alone, we'll be having almost 1 million trees every year. And that one will go a long way to improve the environment, taking into account the importance of trees. It reminds me long time ago when we used to be told when we were young in school that when you cut one tree, you plant two. And the call for now to have these trees, I mean, to go, what the motion which we are debating now is equivalent to going back to those good olden days when everywhere was a forest, until some time when, because of greed, because of not taking care of our forest, because of not looking at our environment. This is why we are fighting with climate change and the consequences which come with climate change. I would urge all the members of this House to rally behind and support this particular motion. We have a kitty in the NCDF on environment. I think it is not a matter of where will we get resources to do that. It is just the will for us to put it in practice, and we will have our highways, our roads looking very beautiful. We find that as you drive even along our highways currently, like even in Nairobi, we had been planting maybe flowers, which most of the time they were getting destroyed. I mean, we were just doing it for the sake of, it was just like an exercise in futility, because we have had many times flowers being planted, they have been destroyed, new leadership comes in, they decide we want to plant these trees, they do away with them, and so on. So it is a very good initiative. Some time back, when this highway, the express road was being done, there is a tree which sits in Westlands next to Naivas supermarket, the oldest tree I think in Kenya. It was so scary that tree was going to be brought down, but fortunately, the designers of the road decided to redirect it so that the tree would remain. We look forward to having many of those kind of trees along our highways. We cannot be labor to give or to state the importance of trees, which we all know. I'm imagining if along all our highways we have trees, very, very beautiful trees, our environment will be good, and the benefits of those trees will be immeasurable. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't want to say so much. I just wanted to say this is the way to go. We are not running, there is no shortage of seedlings to plant. I'm sure that the nation is ready. It will create jobs for the young people, for the youth, for women, for men. At least people will be having some activity to do and having some income to take home. It is coming at the right time when the Kenya Kwanza government, through the initiative of our president, is planning to have to have trees being planted and converting the kazi mtaani into a tree planting exercise. It's not just enough for those young people doing the kazi mtaani to just sweep the streets every day, dig trenches, cut trees. It will be very fruitful if indeed they'll be doing an exercise which is real, and they will be planting trees which will bring change in the livelihood of human beings, animals, and all other species who are on this earth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Let me donate the remaining time to another speaker.
The Honourable Member for Nandi, the Honourable Lady Cynthia Muge.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion that has been brought to the floor of this House by Honourable KJ. Honourable Speaker, I must say from the beginning that the importance of trees to our environment cannot be gainsaid. And I rise in support of this particular motion, Honourable Speaker, because the most available and public land that we can be able to have our trees planted is the road reserves. Honourable Speaker, it will not only be important for our environment, but it will also be important in protecting our road reserves against encroachment, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, in our culture, where I come from, it is a taboo to fence off a tree that you did not plant. you must let it be. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that plantation of the trees along the road reserves will protect our road reserves, Honorable Speaker, because you find that most of our roads have been encroached and they do not meet the required standards that they were classified under. Honorable Speaker, every time I hear anyone and someone talking about trees and environment, I remember the late Wangari Maathai. She did a lot of work and she did a lot of championing for purposes of ensuring that the environment is kept well and every tree is treasured as much as you treasure the best things that you have in your house, Honorable Speaker. I remember, Honorable Speaker, when we were doing our campaigns, there's a very popular junction in my county. It is in Tindred constituency, a ward called Kapsimatwa. That particular junction called Chebarus, Honorable Speaker, has a very beautiful tree that has actually made people bring some benches for them to be able to sit there. And every time, Honorable Speaker, we were from campaigns, and every time that you would see that particular tree, you would just want to get down there and sit and enjoy the breeze. And Honorable Speaker, one funny thing, it has actually created a job opportunity for someone. There is some person or some guy who is being paid by the people who sit there to be able to sweep the leaves that drop off that tree every other time, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I support and thank Honorable KJ for having been thoughtful enough to bring this particular motion to the floor of the House, I want to say that for us to have a country that has larger forest cover, Honorable Speaker, that when you look at the aerial maps that are normally taken in this country and other countries, Honorable Speaker, you can be able to see a large forest cover as large as that one of Uganda. Honorable Speaker, I've always admired the aerial views of Uganda as a country, Honorable Speaker. We want to see that happens in Kenya. And how that happens in Kenya, Honorable Speaker, is for us to be able to love trees with every breath that we take until we perish. Ensure that every opportunity that you have, you're able to plant a tree, even if it's not in your land. You can just sow a seed and get going so that someone who will be there 20 years to come will be able to enjoy the benefits of that tree. Honorable Speaker, I want to also say that I'm very happy having heard and listened to Her Excellency Rachel Ruto, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya. I am happy, Honorable Speaker, because she is holding dearly the issue of the environment. And I'm sure with that, Honorable Speaker, we are going to have a country that is not only sensitive, but also responsive in regards to ensuring that we have trees in our country. Honorable Speaker, there is a very famous saying that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years ago. And then it says the second best time to do it is right now, Honorable Speaker. I want to tell everyone that the second best time, because we might not have been there in 50 years, of course I'm speaking on my behalf, Honorable Speaker, 50 years ago or 60 years ago, is right now, that we plant a tree and ensure that we are able to protect that tree so that it can serve the generations that are coming. Honorable Speaker, they also say a country that destroys its soil, Honorable Speaker, destroys itself. I want to say, Honorable Speaker, we are not a country that destroys itself, so we must ensure that we protect our soils by planting trees anywhere and everywhere, including our compounds. I support this motion, and I thank the Honorable KJ for having been thoughtful enough to bring these motions to the floor of the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
MP for Turkana East.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this chance to add my voice on this very important motion. So, Speaker, trees are very important in our daily life, as we can read so many things that trees gives to us. Like trees help the communities in those areas where we have floods. So the time we plant trees, it protects soil erosion. And also the issue of wind. Trees act as windbreakers. In the other areas, when we talk of these planting trees along our roads, you know, before we create those roads, there were trees there before. So the time we create these roads, there is need for us to plant more trees to replace the trees which were cut for the roads to be built in those areas. So it is not something that we chance, but we need to do it because there is also the saying which says you cut one tree, you plant more. Trees also help our communities when it comes to the issue of food, those are fruits, and also honey. With trees, we can have bees, and from the flowers of those trees, the bees can manufacture honey for human beings. So trees are very important. Mr. Speaker, we can allow me also to say something on the NGCDF, because I was to contribute, but I will not get that chance. Mr. Speaker, I like to add my voice on this issue of CDF, whereby there are people who are just moving at the corridors of courts every day on this issue of CDF, in the sense that they are fighting the MPs, forgetting that they are fighting the Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I just want to urge those people, ladies and guys who are just moving in the courts, to fight the MPs from the areas they come from. Let them come and we compete for these seats, but not to fight the CDF. CDF is for the common mwananchi. It is not meant for the MPs. The only thing we have in this position we have been given here by the wananchi in those areas. So the only thing they can fight with us is just to come and we compete, not to go there and do harm, which they have done. As we talk in my own constituency, all the kids who are supposed to go to school, they are at home. And I don't believe if we can have some classes, let's say those who are in Form 1 now, they are at home. We are going to miss even some students in some forms. Some schools they will close because now those kids they will not do exam for them to be promoted to other classes. So there is a need for this money to be released so that these young Kenyans can go to school and continue their life. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I thank you for giving me the chance, and I support the motion.
The MP for Kirinyaga Central, Gitari, is he in the House?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you. I want to congratulate my brother KJ for bringing this timely motion. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, as Kenya Kwanza government, we have a forum to do 5 million trees, and this will be part of it. You are aware that we have the young people that are unemployed, and instead of using them for cleanup in the kasi kwa vijana issues, they can be used by these contractors in doing these trees. Mr. Speaker, we've seen cows going for as low as 500. We've seen goats going for as low as 100 shillings because of drought. If we cover all our roads with trees when they are being constructed, Mr. Speaker, we will have a chance to attract rainfall, and we might get out of these droughts. Mr. Speaker, there is a debate on the climate change, and it's a serious debate, and we'll only succeed if we do this planting of trees on our road itself. Mr. Speaker, I'm one of the people who do designs of roads, and one of the biggest challenges we get is encroachment along our roads, because what the government did, they acquired, but they did not survey out and marking the head of road itself. Mr. Speaker, when these trees are done, they will assist in curbing these menace of encroachment of our roads. Mr. Speaker, if you drive in Kirinyaga Central, around our the only university we have, Kirinyaga University College, you'll see the beauty of having trees along the road. One time, I had a chance to go to the second president, Somat Kabarak, and you can see the beauty of trees along the road. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, we want to encourage my brother and tell him after this let's follow it so that we have a bill so that this one is actualized. Mr. Speaker, on the same note, I want to add to the debate. I was in a forum whereby we've been informed that the NGCDF was knocked out by the court yesterday. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to stand up for our issues. And Mr. KJ, we should, I think in the motion, at a point when we are doing the bill, we should include all the roads. Those are the ones which are covered by Kenha, the others which are covered by Kura and Kera, so that all of them, even if we are doing Maram roads, we are sure that we do the trees. I support.
The Honorable Caroline Ngeleche, you have only 5 minutes. Then after that, the mover will be asked to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. First of all, let me appreciate Honorable John Kiarie, MP, for the motion. Honorable Mr. Speaker, I am a county MP for Elgeyo Marakwet, and Elgeyo Marakwet is the second county in Kenya with a forest cover of 37.6%, majorly indigenous trees. This issue of planting trees along the road, to me, in all the other parts of Kenya, is very important, Mr. Speaker. We are faced with a challenge of climate change, and we always educate people, and we always try to convince people to plant trees within their compounds. We convince people to plant trees in schools and other institutions. The government has land, unutilized land along the road, which is yet to be developed. Why can the trees be grown in those areas, whereas you know some of the land reserves, road reserves, might take long before they are developed? And I think it will be prudent and well in order if it can be utilized to grow the trees for the time being. When you go to other countries, you find that along the roadsides, people have been encouraged to plant not only trees, but also fruit trees, which will serve as to conserve the environment, and at the same time, fruits can be grown along the road. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support the motion, and I would wish if each and every part of the road, at least we get to have trees planted. Number two, Mr. Speaker, trees are wind breakers, and especially in arid and semi-arid lands. At times you find that we are faced with a challenge of maybe flooding or very strong winds blowing along the roads, especially in the north, what do you call these ones? The roads, the all-weather roads, which are not yet developed. So it will be good if we can have these trees. Then again, Mr. Speaker, we know that in Kenya, as much as we would want people to conserve the environment, so many people are still dependent on firewood as a means of cooking, or as a way. You find many homesteads, over 80% of homesteads in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, are still dependent on firewood as a means of cooking. It is good as they cut down those trees because of lack of an alternative, or as they destroy, it is good also the government to encourage by planting more trees, so that as people cut down and destroy other few, then we can have more trees being planted. And we should also do that to give an example to young generation, that the government is also encouraging people to do planting of trees, not just telling individual people and private persons to do the planting of trees. The government should lead by example by allowing the bare land that is within them to do the tree planting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Ganze, please take exactly 3 minutes, and then followed by the Honorable Member for Kwanza, another 3 minutes, and the mover will reply.
Okay.
Proceed, Honorable Members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I also want to congratulate Honorable KJ for bringing up this motion to Parliament. It's a very timely one because, as you all know, Kenya at the moment is suffering from the vagaries of climate change. And one way to mitigate climate change is to make sure that we have enough tree cover in the country. We need to increase the forest cover so as to attract more rainfall to reduce the effects of the current drought. So this is a very timely motion, and I support the fact that we should embark on a drive to make sure that we plant trees in all the road reserves that we have in the country. And I want to commend the President for coming up with a plan of planting 5 billion trees in the next 5 years. And I think it is a good way to start with the available road reserve, but we should not stop there. I think this exercise should cover all public places that we have available, including public primary and secondary schools. Again, I would want to note that we have had road contractors who have really cut down trees, but they have not reinstated them. All the contractors are supposed to do what we call the environmental impact assessment, but most of them do these reports as a formality, but they don't go ahead to mitigate the effects of cutting down trees to implement the project. So I think more needs to be done to compel contractors to make sure that if they cut trees for them to construct roads, they have to make sure that these trees are reinstated so that we can maintain the forest cover that we have. And I want to bring an issue that is currently happening in my constituency, Ganze, and Kilifi at large. Of late, we have seen Chinese contractors translocating baobab trees. They are uprooting baobab trees and exporting them or taking them to their countries. Baobab trees are very valuable to us. They have a lot of emotional attachments to especially my tribe. And whatever is happening in Kilifi right now is not the right thing to do. So I want to urge the respective or the concerned government department, please, this is an act that needs to be stopped with immediate effect, because if it is not stopped, then in the near future, I think all the baobab trees in Kilifi are going to be taken to China. We are, as leaders, we want to make sure that we increase forest cover. So it's a pity to see some trees are being translocated now to foreign countries.
Order. The Honorable MP for Kwanza. You have exactly 3 minutes, Honorable MP for Kwanza. I understand the Honorable KJ has decided to donate a few of his minutes to the gracious lady.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I think this, I want to take this opportunity to thank Honorable John K. for coming up with this. I think that's also a foresight, because we having problem, the economic issues and what have you, now with the dry spells is because of the cutting of the trees. And therefore, I think as we pass this motion, which we want to take into a bill, we want that the contractors that are, whatever contract, whether with the KRA, with the KERA or KENHA, they will be contracted to be obliged that as they do the roads, Mr. Speaker, they should also be planting trees as they go along. Reason is that, as you know, these road reserves are almost 6 meters from the center of the road, either side. So you're talking about 12 meters, and 12 meters is a lot of land. And given that we have got these ecological problems we're having, these dry spells that we're having, because of the changes in the climate, we want, therefore, that these people, when they're contracting with the KENHA or KERA, they should be able to sign to plant the trees on either side. Secondly, we also can also talk to, as you take off this project, we can also ask the families that are along the road to be able to take care of their areas to plant the trees. And I'm sure that can be done, given the fact that if they are going to be paid for something small, the families or whatever along the roads will be able to plant trees and look out those trees. The Speaker, it's very important, and I think I also want to thank the honorable member, because where you go in a dry area, you will find that there's, at the roadside you can be able to do the irrigation without interfering with anybody, and be able to grow these trees. And of course, the importance of the whole thing is that the trees then, of course, would be able to grow without any problem, because there'll be a cooperation between the owners of the land along the road, plus, of course, the Kenha or Ken or whatever. So whether it's Kenha or Kera, we should be able to enforce this rule so they can be able to plant trees, and that, of course, will enable us to have climatic changes in this country. We are having problems. In my area, we used to have rain, now there's no rain, just because of trees. So I think this is a very good idea, and I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you, my friend. I think your thoughts actually are very beneficial to this country. Thank you so much. I support.
The Honorable Member of Parliament for Kajiado County, Honorable Leah, you have 2 minutes that were directed to you by the Honorable MP for the Greater South. Proceed. Behind you. Oh, okay, proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion by the Honorable Kiarie. This is actually very timely, and I support it fully. I support the motion not only to have our trees planted on the main road reserves, but throughout our counties to increase the tree cover and to curb the effects of climate change. Mr. Speaker, I also rise as I support this motion as I advocate for this motion and have trees planted to cover most of our vegetation. Mr. Speaker, I'm also very careful on the choice of the trees that we choose to plant on our vegetations. In the early 70s, Mr. Speaker, there was a tree species by the name popularly known as the Mathenge tree, which was introduced in Kenya from South Africa. The tree, Mr. Speaker, was to rehabilitate the arid and semi-arid areas due to its resilience, fast growth rate, and its many uses for fodder, honey production, shade, windbreaker, amongst others, Mr. Speaker. On establishment, Mr. Speaker, the tree aggressively evaded areas of indigenous vegetation and manifested negative impact on rural landscape, as well as on human and livestock health. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that when we choose these trees, let us choose trees and do good research on whether the trees are resilient to drought. We should also look at the long-run impact on the trees, on the human and livestock. This tree has grossly affected my county, Kajiado County, especially the areas of Magadi and Kajiado Central, by aggressively affecting the vegetation. The tree grows along the roads, Mr. Speaker, sometimes evading into roadways, affecting the roadways and affecting paths, Mr. Speaker. I support this motion in totality, and I urge all of us that next time we have trees brought to us, we ask the authorities to kindly check on the background on the trees, so that as much as we get the positive impact from the trees, we also don't get the negative impact as much as we want to grow the vegetation for our counties.
The Honorable Professor Nyikal, you also have 2 minutes donated to you by the MP for the Greater South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Kiare. Mr. Speaker, trees are the lungs of the earth. They take the CO2 that we give out, and they give oxygen what we breathe in, us and all animals. They take water and they transpire the water into the air, cooling the earth. They also are rain catchment. They stop erosion. And The world population has now hit 80 billion. As that increases, we need more trees. I therefore support this. But Mr. Speaker, I would want to just make 2 points for Honorable Kiari to take into consideration. The law as it is now, the road authorities, particularly Kenya, actually will clear all trees from the road reserves. So we'll have to actually look at the law. I tried in my constituency to actually put outside the road reserve, but those are private land. And therefore, if we do that, we may need to now engage the owners of the land to actually take care of the trees and nurture them. I think if we look at the law along the roads, and then we involve the private owners of land just outside the road reserves, I think the program will be workable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
The Honorable KJ, Honorable Kiarie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I will be seeking.
Did you give somebody else another 2 minutes?
Yes,
did
sir.
You donate?
Yes, sir. I did donate some time to the Honorable Dr. Pukose.
Which
2
you have
minutes.
not communicated to me.
Yes.
But then now proceed.
I'm communicating that, and kindly, if you would allow, if you would engage us, Mr. Speaker,
yes.
Kindly let me donate another minute and a half to the Honorable Shakil Shabir.
Fair enough.
And a minute each to Honorable Ruto and Mheshimiwa. Actually,
Honorable Ruto, the MP4.
And with your permission, Mr. Speaker, each one can have a go, 1 minute each. Yes.
Honorable MP4 Keses. The Honorable Dr. Pukosing.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Dr. Pukose.
Pukose, okay.
Or you can call Robert, the member for Endebess. Honorable Speaker, this is a very good motion because we are saying we plant trees along the road reserves after the work has been done. I think it will be good if the designers can capture that, because when you look at the forest cover in Kenya, we are talking of forest cover of about 6%. At independence, the forest cover in Kenya was 10%. Right now, we are at 6%, which is around 3,500,000 hectares. That is diminishing. And if we continue like that, then we are heading in the wrong direction. So by introducing for us to make sure that along the road we are able to plant trees, but it should be also in a planned manner, such that it is both for beautification and also for both environmental. And we should be able to decide what type of trees are planted along the road, because there are some trees that can also be hazardous. They can be a hazard to the traffic, such that if you have a tree that falls on the road, it can cause accidents. The trees also should be able to, we should also be able to look at the power lines so that we don't interfere with the power lines, because if a tree grows in such a way that interferes with the power lines, then we can have interruption of power. So with those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I think this is a timely motion that we should make it into law, and it will be a very important step. Thank you.
The MP for Keses, then followed by the MP for Kisumu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for this 1 minute I'm being donated by my good friend, Honorable Kiarie. Mr. Speaker, the discussion about plantation of our trees along our road reserves is a timely discussion. In any case, not only in our road reserves, I would really propagate that we begin to think out of our box and look at all public institutions that we have. Because one public institution or asset is road reserves, we have hospitals, we have schools. We need to think around that place in the sense that we want to address and mitigate the challenges of climate change. As we talk now, we are addressing drought and the challenges brought out by drought. Now, we need to look forward. Where did the rain begin to hit us? Kenya, for the first time now, we are borrowing. We are asking for relief food, even to areas that were not experiencing challenges like before. And we will look at all this. It surrounds the challenges of climate change that we are now. So I want to support the motion, and by saying we need to ask all relevant ministries, including farmers, I come from a farming area, and we have these terraces that are being advised by agricultural officers for the purpose of minimizing soil erosion and managing the drainage of water that are running along the shamba. We also want to design and look at carefree and all forest agencies advise the farmers what kind of trees they can plant on the terraces that are friendly to the crops, and at the same time we are achieving the desired tree coverage in our Kenya and managing our environment and looking at the challenges that the future generation are going to face. Thank you so much. Let me donate a few seconds to my immediate person who has been mentioned. Thank you so much.
You have been donated and you donate again. Order.
I stand guided.
Order, Honorable Member. Yeah, the Honorable Shakil Shabil, you also have 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes. Anybody who wants to be donated something.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And the donor is
I want to support, I stand to support this.
For the Goreti South. Proceed.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, Speaker, I stand to support this very important motion. In this time of climate change, we need to formalize some of these things. It isn't that roads were not having trees planted there. In Kisumu, we had some lovely roads and some lovely trees which were cut down very, very viciously just because, and we left with nothing, just because somebody wanted to put a kiosk there. I would like to also suggest that when we look at this, the planting of trees is not the issue. Trees are planted, but they does not germinate because they don't look after it. So I'll be looking to, when the motion is coming up, the bill is coming up, we'll look to see how to amend it, not only to say plant the trees, but put the obligation on the person on the road that they must look after those trees, maybe the contractor or whoever has handed over by law. Mr. Speaker, sir, in my constituency we have, and I would like to also have this thing extended to schools. Schools must also have this. So we take advantage of this particular motion and extend it to school areas which are common areas. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I have started something called a pilot forest program. Because we've been putting trees everywhere and they don't even last 10 minutes or 1 hour or maybe 3 weeks because some cow comes and eats it. So we have this pilot program which we have fenced off, and it's less than 1/4 of an acre, and that program at this moment in time is being featured in the CDF documentary. So those are the things we need to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, KJ, for bringing this. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
The MP for Mwingi North, and Zengu, you have also 2 minutes donated to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion. From the onset, I want to support the motion by Honorable Kerry and thank him for donating some time for me. And as I support this motion, this morning I was driving along the Mombasa Road, and when I looked at the way as the expressway has been done, it's a beautiful project, and we thank the government for having conceived that idea. But when you look at the nakedness that has resulted from demolishing the trees that used to be along Uhuru Highway, Mombasa Road, you really feel it. And if you go to Europe and in other developed countries, almost all the streets are usually having trees planted on the road reserve. If you're going to Kitui from Kwavonza, you will find the beauty as you enter Kitui, a project that was carried out by KEFRI. And so I agree with the Honorable Kiarie that indeed, even as we plant trees for environmental purposes, we are also going to beautify our cities and our roads. So I want to really support and say that Honorable Kiarie should actually graduate this motion into a bill and make it an act of parliament, and so that it can be enforced to ensure that all new roads, like if you look at the new roads that have been built in Nairobi, the bypasses, none of them have got trees planted on the road reserve. So I think I ask Honorable Kiarie to escalate this to an act, bill, and eventually it becomes an act of parliament. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise also to support this motion by Honorable KJ, because, Mr. Speaker, as a way of maintaining our environment, tree planting is very, very key. Mr. Speaker, this tree planting along the roads is not only beautification. It does not only help in beautification, but also it helps in improving environment conservation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this will go a long way in the rallying call raised by our president that we need to plant 5 billion trees, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, measures should be put in place to ensure that any other development along the road does not come to interfere with trees that we plant. Mr. Speaker, when you look at Nairobi city today, Nairobi is very beautiful because of past leadership. The mayor for Nairobi those days decided to put the plant trees along the roads within the city, and that is why we have a beautiful city in this region, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate KJ, because when you look at many cities in our county, many towns in our country, Mr. Speaker, the buildings are good, but the surrounding environment does not look pleasant, Mr. Speaker. So I support this motion so that going forward, we have a beautiful country surrounded by trees, and that will make our environment good. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and we will support this thing going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Naomi Wako, MP for Marsabit, has also been donated 2 minutes. By, what's your point of order? Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to join my colleagues, honorable members, by supporting this motion, this very important motion and very relevant. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a country, we are going through a very serious drought, which is as a result of deforestation in our counties. And I support this and encourage in every citizen, we plant trees in every school and every function that we have as leaders. Let us encourage tree planting along the roads and make sure that we also protect. Mr. Speaker, when we do this, we will not only beautify the area, but we will also take care of our health, we will also take care of the environment, and that in turn will help this country to come up with healthy citizens, and we will also be able to show our children some responsibility, because it is our responsibility to take care of our environment, and by planting trees, by taking care of the trees, then we will be coming up with more responsible citizens who will be answerable for the surroundings, and it is my prayer that this will be effected soon. I support the motion, and thank you.
MP for Kajiado, the Honorable Ngogoyo. Proceed. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
And then you realize, the Honorable KJ, you're only left with 4 minutes. You have donated everything.
6 minutes.
Oh, proceed.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We appreciate the honorable member's generosity. It will always come his way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Ngogoyo Onesmus, Member of Parliament for Kajiado North. I rise also to support the motion and thank the honorable member, KJ, for bringing this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, you realize planting of trees is not just because we need more trees. Increasing forest cover, it's about the oxygen we breathe. It's about holding the soil on the ground. It's about, Mr. Speaker, the future. We need to make this issue of tree planting a culture. And how we do it, Mr. Speaker, is by taking very simple steps and not magic. I therefore wish to support the motion and thank the Honorable KJ, because even as the contractors that have been contracted by different entities, county government, national governments, once we begin planting trees, this, Mr. Speaker, in a very, very big way, especially in regions that we come from, like Kajiado North, Mr. Speaker, will increase the number of trees we are planting. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, we will have people to nurture these trees so that eventually we will have increased our forest cover. In the rallying call of His Excellency the President, he said he wants to do 5 billion trees. This is one way of, in a simple way, increasing the forest cover, which eventually, Mr. Speaker, in our future, we will have protected the generations to come. And like Wangare Maathai said, if we don't take care of Mother Nature will also retreat and not take care of us. Therefore, we wish to support the motion and thank the Honourable Member for giving me his time so that I may contribute to this very important motion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for the Dagoretti South, you realize you only had 10 minutes for the reply, and it's like you've almost exhausted all of it, but the chair will use his own discretion because of the seriousness of the matter before us and the national interest. You have 6 minutes. What's your point of order, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Kuria? From Nakuru.
Nakuru Town.
Nakuru Town, proceed.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to request you exercise Standing Order number 1. Honourable Speaker, I'm the Chair of Environment, Forestry and Mining, and I would feel very bad if this thing just went without me giving a word. So I wish to indulge you to just give me just a minute.
Standing Order number 1. One stipulates that anything not provided, then the chair can use a discretion. This is already provided. But given the fact that you come from a serious committee that concerns with this very serious issue before us, I'll give you exactly 3 minutes to say what you have to say.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and how I wish, but hopefully we'll be here next time, and you will be the substantive speaker, and I'll be able to vote for you. Honourable Speaker, I want to thank my dear brother, KJ, for the motion that he's brought, a very timely motion, and Honourable Speaker, the whole world now is talking about climate change. And part of that is the global warming and the effect of trees. And what Honourable KJ is coming up, and I want to concur with a few of my colleagues, I heard them saying, it is not only supposed to be a motion, Honourable Speaker, it is supposed to, to escalate to a bill. In other aspects of, say, like the building code and other building acts, at some point we were discussing that it's also important for us to include as a mandatory requirement, just like when you're getting approvals for building houses and other places, that you must be required to plant a certain number of trees, even if you don't have a space in where you're putting up your house or the road where you can be allocated a place in the forest department, by the forest department, in our forest for you to be able to do that. And I think it is important for us to think as a country that much as we are trying to address the issue of climate change and global warming, planting of trees is a key. We will escalate as a committee also, even at the school level. As much as we at the school level, we encourage students to start taking up as a subject so that we can. And lastly, Honourable Speaker, is the importance of taking care of forest fires. We plant trees. They take years for them to be able to grow. And then just maybe a person taking a cigarette or somebody, malice, goes and puts fire in our forest. Again, we need to look into the aspect on how we can be able to protect our forest in the sense of reducing the incidences of forest fire that consume a huge population of our trees. So I want to thank my dear brother and pongezi sana for the good work you're doing. He's from an urban area, and in an urban area you expect not so many trees, but he has taken upon his responsibility to be able, and you are a good example for the young people who are in this parliament under the age of 35. I think this is his fourth motion in less than 2 months, and he is a good example of the young people. I hope the other young people will be learning from what KJ is doing and be able to address and represent the younger people in this. Asante sana, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable KJ, the mover now can reply.
Mr. Speaker, this is the first time I was speaking to something substantive this afternoon, and I'll take the earliest opportunity to congratulate you for ascending to the Presidium, and I know you are no stranger to that seat, having presided in a previous parliament as a Deputy Speaker, and I have to say that it has been quite a pleasure. What a joy it has been this afternoon having you preside over the business of this House. Thank you also for your magnanimity. As I reply, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to refer to my statements when I was moving this motion. And I took this House down memory lane. And I talked about one man by the name John Dawson Ainsworth, a colonialist. He was a DC. He was around 20-something years old. He was tasked with the job of establishing a city. He had been a DC in Masaku, where the colonialists had imagined the capital city would be, but he was moved here when they identified a piece of land which they thought was fit to build a city. This man Ainsworth planted trees. Unfortunately, they were not the very environmentally friendly ones, but he was planting trees to treat a malady of flooding in this city. In his own wisdom, he had gone and found out that the Australian blue gum was very good in sucking water out of a city, like out of a land that is as swampy as Nairobi. As the Swahili say, baniani mbaya kiatu chake dawa. This man, though a very appetite-driven colonialist, did great service to this city by planting many trees. You know, Mr. Speaker, that these trees have existed for more than a century. It is us, in our own wisdom or lack of it, that have come to cut down the trees that were planted by John Dawson Ainsworth. But I won't celebrate him as much as I will celebrate a man by the name John Gakuo. John Gakuo was a committed, selfless civil servant. Unfortunately, someone has said, it was Lee Kuan Yew who wrote in his book, that the tragedy of Africa is that we kill our best. The Honorable John Gakuo died in prison, crying to be taken to hospital just to get some medical attention. One of our finest civil servants, one of our best city clerks in this city died, but we remember him for the greening and the cleaning of this city. Mr. Speaker, it was Yellow Taxi featuring Vanessa Carlton that sang that they took all the trees and put them in a museum, and they charged $1.50 for people to see them. And they were mourning and saying, don't it all seem to go that we do not know what we have till it's gone? Mr. Speaker, we are mourning the drying of our city, the drying of our country, the effects of climate change because of the trees that we are cutting down. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm bringing this motion at a time when the President is committing to this country planting 5 billion trees in 5 years. But, Mr. Speaker, if you go to places like Kiambu, places like Kisii, you will see that the shambas are the size of a handkerchief, Mr. Speaker. People cannot afford land for their cultivation, land for tree planting, and even for burying their dead, Mr. Speaker. So we are talking about planting trees at a time when there is a big competition for the land resource. We have to be innovative, Mr. Speaker. And the innovation has been built upon by the contributions that each and every member who has spoken to this motion has built onto this motion, Mr. Speaker, that we might not be having enough land in our shambas. But if we are building 600 kilometers of road per annum on average, Mr. Speaker, these 600 kilometers per annum can be good corridors for planting and greening our country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is in the contributions that came up here that we learned that science has proven that by the higher the degree of temperatures going up, the higher it goes, the poorer do countries become, the poorer do people become. But even shockingly, Mr. Speaker, science has proven that temperatures going high in a country contributes to the stupidity of people in that country, Mr. Speaker. Quite a shocking revelation by science. Mr. Speaker, there's been a big component of preserving the trees after planting them. It was a build that was made by members here as they were contributing. They said, beyond just planting the tree, we have to think of a component of how to preserve them after we have planted them. Mr. Speaker, it is a shame that the contractors that we give the work to build roads in this country, most of them foreign, do the things that they would never do in their countries, Mr. Speaker. The foreign contractors are actually culpable of the felling of trees along roads as they are developing these roads, Mr. Speaker. These foreigners would never do such an unimaginable thing in their countries, Mr. Speaker. It is time we stood up as Kenyans and said that any contractor that we give a road contract should be tasked, one, with the task of replacing all the trees that they cut or fell during the construction of the road, and secondly, these, as has been said here, should be escalated to a bill, and I shall take the task, so that we can set a threshold of how many trees should be planted per kilometer. Mr. Speaker, I would want to finally ask that the executive takes note of the resolution of this House, Mr. Speaker, because I am urging this House to resolve that we plant trees along roadsides and road reserves. Let this resolution of this House mean something, Mr. Speaker. I did have a word with the Minister for Environment, a former member of this House, the Honorable Soipan, and she committed that she shall work with this House on the implementation of the resolution that shall come out of this motion. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity and for the magnanimity of contributing some time to my fellow members who wanted to contribute to this motion. I do appreciate, and I beg to move, Mr. Speaker.
There are days when you think, oh, leo na deserve, so order a